remember a time in education when decisions were made at the top, filtered down through various levels of hierarchy to classroom teachers who were expected to do something with the bits of information they received through the pedagogical game of telephone. And it's no longer like that. Connectivity has given us new tools and new powers, and it's now possible for a globally connected classroom teacher to drive change across a system. So what do we do with this power, and how do we use these tools, and what does it mean for leadership? Dennis Micah of the Literacy and Numeracy Secretariat, he's just retired, says that our current models of leadership in education, it's time for them to change. They've taken us as far as they can take us, and we need to create something different in leadership if we're truly to transform our schools into places of knowledge creation. And so I'm here today to share a project in my board, the Hamilton-Wentworth District School Board, our Integrative Thinking project, to show you a model of what this new form of leadership might look like. And it's very much connected to my own personal journey of transformation in education. 5 years ago, I decided to become a learner alongside my students, as we discovered the power of connectivity. And we connected globally with some remarkable people, and my students were able to engage in some incredible projects that weren't just being done for the sake of school, but that had impact upon the world. My students ended up winning 2 national awards. They garnered a great deal of media attention, and I suddenly found myself as a teacher with a voice in my board and a voice in education. One of many formerly anonymous teachers who, through connectivity, are suddenly able to drive change in a different way in education. And one of the people I connected with through the work that I was doing was a woman named Noga Kornberg from the Rotman School of Management in Toronto. And they have a K-12 initiative in their business school. Many people might think, what's a business school doing messing about in elementary education? But one of the graduates, Ellie Avishai of Rotman, said to the dean that the problem-solving and thinking strategies being taught at the MBA levels are almost too late. These need to be taught to a younger group of students. And so they decided to enter into elementary education, and I was invited to participate. And what I saw there was remarkable. Because for me, after taking my students through amazing projects in inquiry, this was the missing piece. These were tools and ways of approaching problem solving that would cause my students to think differently and actually allow them to come up with new and innovative solutions to very, very complex problems. I was so excited by what I saw, I immediately went back into my classroom and began experimenting and doing what I do. I blogged about it, which got the attention of Rotman, and established a lovely working relationship between my students, myself, and the School of Management as we figured out what to do with integrative thinking in the classroom. My vice principal, Audrey Henson, and my principal, Barry Morlog, were so amazed by what they were seeing in my students that they decided to invite Rotman into the school and release the entire middle school staff for a day of training in integrative thinking. And then I did something I never would have done 5 years previously. I contacted my director, because now I could. Connectivity is changing the way working relationships happen in education. And I felt comfortable letting him know what was happening in my classroom, that something powerful was going on. And I connected him with Ellie at Rotman, and he ended up taking the entire executive council for a day of integrative thinking training at the Rotman School of Management. So Audrey Henson and I, after all of this, decided we needed to bring this in a larger way to our school board. So we put a proposal together, but we wanted to do something different, something that was meaningful, something that would be actually useful to teachers and students, and be something that we could celebrate. So we thought about all the things that we didn't like about traditional PD and what we did, and we thought about all the things of value in these new forms of PD that were happening, things like EdCamp that were happening because of connectivity, and we put our model together. And the first thing we decided that this could not be the consultants receiving training in integrative thinking. It had to be teachers working directly with students in the classroom, because they would be the ones who would see the process, see the impact of that process, get the excitement, and cause this to grow. So we asked that it be teachers who get the training. And then we thought about, well, what kind of teacher would best take advantage of this and leverage this and grow it? And we thought those teachers already involved in transformative practice in their classrooms should be invited to join in. So principals were asked to look for those informal leaders in their schools and invite them to participate. There would be nothing mandatory about this. And then we looked at the structure of how this should be, and we saw value both in formal leadership an informal PD and an informal PD, and how could we create something new and interesting that would leverage everything that we knew about good training. And so we knew there would be 3 days of formal training with Rotman, but then we wanted to create a space in between where we could just gather as a group and share our experiences and what was happening in our classrooms and talk about what we were trying out and support each other as we grew this initiative. And then we also wanted to create an online space. So a blog was suggested where everybody could post in one place the amazing work that we knew would happen in that classroom. We also thought that if we were going to do all this work in integrative thinking, it'd be wasted unless the high schools knew the new kind of student they would be getting, because integrative thinking does change how students approach learning and problem solving. And wouldn't it be a shame if that just disappeared? So we broke down the silo and asked that elementary and high school be brought together and that we move through this process together so there's greater continuity and understanding of each other's contexts. And finally, we thought about what kind of experience do we want teachers to have in this? And we wanted this to be a joyful, low-pressure learning experience where they would be explicitly given permission to take risks, to experiment, just try things out and see what would happen with integrative thinking. That was very, very important to us, and we knew from our experience with EdCamp, this was a great way for teachers to learn. So we put our proposal into the board, it was accepted, and remarkable things began to happen. Our first group of teachers, of 20 teachers, have just completed their training in integrative thinking. And the common response or comment I get from the teachers who've gone through it is, it's not just transforming what happens in their classroom, but it has been personally transformative. It's changing their lives, it's changing how they approach education, it's changing how they interact with others. And one teacher said she's even changing her direction as a teacher because it has had such a powerful impact on her. The project has been so successful that the board has decided that a second cohort of teachers will begin training this spring because they want to grow this very, very rapidly. On Friday, we brought together all those new teachers, the ones who've gone through the training already, the principals who've kind of been on the outside of watching what's been happening, to one space where those who've gone through the process of attempting to do integrative thinking in their classrooms, to share what we've learned so far. And John Malloy, our director, spoke to us at that event. He spoke for about 15 minutes. It was very inspiring. But what struck me was his message, that his recognition of the importance of grassroots in education, and that we need to let these kinds of initiatives emerge and bubble up. And administration at the top needs to figure out a way to support and then get out of the way so this good work could continue to happen. And that was such a different message from ones I've received previously in education that I was really inspired and excited to hear this. So I would say to those formal people in positions of formal leadership out there, that if you really want to create places of knowledge building and knowledge creation in your schools and change the culture, look to your informal leaders. See the good work that they're doing. How are you leveraging them? How are you breaking down the barriers to communication so that things can begin to bubble up and emerge? And I would say to those teachers who are doing amazing work in their classrooms to don't stay so isolated. The world needs to see what you're doing, and you need to leverage the power of connectivity so others can benefit from what you're learning. I was talking with Rod Lucier, some of you might know him as the Clever Sheep on Twitter the other day, about whether it's better to be an administrator or a teacher to drive change in education. And he said something that's really stuck with me. The most powerful leadership position is the one that you are already in. So let us all be leaders. Thank you.